We know that a knight placed on the rim is dim. A knight placed on the edge of the board is a bad piece, and it is said that one bad piece is enough to spoil the whole game. Bad piece is not only applicable to the minor pieces, at times even a queen also can become bad. In this video we are going to see how the white queen, after grabbing the a pawn, became bad and could not come to the rescue of its king. This game is played between Yusupov and Gulko. Boris Gulko is a Russian grandmaster who won the Soviet Championship in 1977, and after migrating to US won the US Championship twice in 1994 and 1999. So he is the only player who has won both the Soviet Championship and also US Championship. He is also one among the few players who have plus score against former world champion Kasparov. In the 8 games played against Kasparov, he won 3 games, lost 1 and drew 4 games. Now we move on to the game. So here Yusupov plays white and Boris Gulko plays black. Yusupov opened with d4. Gulko played knight to f6. And after c4 it's g6, and after nc3 d5. So it's a Grenfell defense. Now Yusupov played c into d5, n into d5, e4, n into c3, b into c3, bishop g7, bishop c4. So this variation is a exchange variation 7 bc4 line. So another line here is 7 nf3. After playing nf3, white opts to develop the bishop to bishop e2. So this is also another main line. So after bishop c4, black preferred to castle here. So after ne2, black plays nc6. Now white castle b6, bishop to g5, bishop to b7, queen d2, queen d6, rook to d1, knight to a5, bishop to d3, c5, d5, e6. Black has to attack the center pawns immediately, otherwise white center pawns would become a dangerous threat to black. So after e6, white played c4, black played bishop to a6, for which white replied queen to c2. So now we will see if white plays rook to c1, what will happen. So if white plays rook to c1 here, then e into d5, c into d5, bishop into d3, queen into d3, f5. So attacking the center. So if white plays here f3, then f into e4, f into e4, knight c6. So this move, by this move, black can blockade on the black squares, which gives him at least equal chances. Suppose if white plays n f4 instead of f3, black can play f into e4, queen into e4, rook a e8, knight to e6, rook to f5. This gives him a clear advantage for black. Now moving on to the game position, where white played queen c2 instead of rook c1. So black played e into d5 here. For e into d5, white played e into d5, queen to d7, knight g3, rook a e8, bishop d2, attacking the knight, knight b7. Now knight to e4, knight to d6. So eliminating the black header, knight into d6, queen into d6, white played queen a4, bishop to c8, now queen into a7. Now the white queen is out of action for at least 2 or 3 moves. Black hurries to attack the white's king. The way in which black builds up an attack on the king side is really very instructive. Now black plays bishop to e5 attacking the h2 pawn. White plays here h3 weakening the king side. He can also play f4, for which black can play bishop d4 check. So if black plays f4, bishop d4 check, king h1, bishop to g4 attacking the rook. So now if rook e1, rook a8, queen e7, queen into queen, rook into a2, which would give him a slight advantage over white. So now we move on to the game position. White has played h3, a slightly weakening move on the king side. Now black played bishop d4 pinning the f2 pawn. Now bishop into h3 is a real threat. So white played king to h1. Suppose if white plays queen to a3, then bishop h3. If g into h3, then queen g3 check, king h1, queen into h3 check, king g1, bishop e5, threatening mate on h2. So f4 is forced now. If f4, bishop d4 check, rook f2, queen g4 check and picks up the rook on d1. So after queen a3, he can also play bishop into g6, bishop into g2, bishop into h7 check, king into h7, king into g2, rook g8 check, king f3, rook g6, queen d3, pinning the rook, king g7, bishop f4, queen f6. Now if rook e1, rook into rook, rook into rook, bishop into f2 is winning for black. So queen a3 is not possible. So moving on to the game, white played king h1 for bishop d4. So black played queen to f6. Now after bishop into h3, f3 is a weak square. White played bishop e3, for which black answered bishop into h3, bishop into d4, c into d4, d6. Suppose if white plays g into h3, then black can play queen f3 check, king f2, then rook e5 threatening rook g5. If rook g1, then rook 8 e8, queen d7, queen into f2 check, rook g2, queen f4 check, king h7, king h1, rook e1 check, rook into e1, rook into e1 check, rook g1, queen f3 check, king h2, queen into d3, rook into e1, queen d2 check, and picks up the e1 rook also. So he cannot play g into h3, so he played d6 only. So after d6, black played rook e5, Now white played f4, for which he replied with rook e3, so preventing the queen exchange on e7 also. Now white played queen to b7, queen h4, king to g1, bishop into g2, queen into g2, rook g3, pinning and winning the queen, rook into queen, bishop into queen, queen to f6, attacking the passed d pawn. So d7, queen, d6. So after capturing the black's d pawn, it's an easy win for black. So now white plays bishop d5, queen e7, rook f3, queen to e5, rook 1 f1, g5. A good move. With this move, black prevents the opening of the f line. So after g5, white played f6, rook to e8, king to h1. Now comes g4, rook f5, queen to e3, rook h5. Now rook e5, rook to h2, d3. Now white right, bishop into f7 check, king into f7, rook into h7 check, king g6, f7, king into h7, f8 is equal to queen, but after queen h3 check, white resigned. As king g1, queen g3 check, king h1, rook h5 is mate. Thank you for watching.